Our top focus at this hour, the U.S. and Iran are set to complete an exchange of prisoners after months of negotiations, a breakthrough that Washington hopes will open the door to de-escalation of tensions between the arch-foes after both the nations released 5 prisoners each. A plane carrying 5 American prisoners released by Iran as part of a high-profile prisoner exchange landed in the Qatari capital of Doha before the former detainees are expected to then fly on to the United States. The former detainees walked off the plane at Doha International Airport after arriving from Tehran. They were greeted by both U.S. and Qatari officials. Following the detainees' arrival in Doha, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken delivered his remarks on the prisoner swap. He said that the American President Biden has no higher priority than to bring back citizens who are detained wrongfully, further adding that America does not have a problem with Iranian citizens, but with the Iranian regime.
President Biden has demonstrated that he's prepared to make tough and difficult decisions. I have no higher priority. The President has no higher priority than making sure that Americans who are unjustly detained anywhere can come home.
While on the other hand, 2 of the 5 Iranians imprisoned by the U.S. have already arrived in the Gulf state before they transit onto Iran. The 3 other released Iranians have decided against returning to Iran, with 2 staying in the United States and 1 going on to a 3rd country. The exchange is taking place after $6 billion in Iran's oil revenue that had been frozen in South Korea was transferred to bank accounts in Qatar. The funds are said to be monitored to ensure Iran uses the money for goods not hit with sanctions. The release of the funds by U.S. ally South Korea, long blocked under sanctions, is the key condition for the exchange of the detained prisoners. Now, according to sources, Qatar, which acted as a mediator because Washington and Tehran do not have diplomatic relations, has informed both sides of the transfer of money. Meanwhile, the deal has also opened U.S. President Joe Biden to fresh criticism from Republicans and others who say the administration is helping boost the Iranian economy at a time when Iran poses a growing threat to American troops and West Asian allies. Although the U.S. maintains that the money will be held in restricted accounts and will only be able to be used for humanitarian goods such as medicine and food. Those transactions are currently allowed under American sanctions targeting the Islamic Republic of its advancing nuclear program. On the other hand, the West accuses Iran of using foreign prisoners, including those with dual nationality, as bargaining chips, an allegation which Tehran has rejected. We're now being joined by Edward P. Joseph. He's the Senior Fellow at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and Foreign Policy Analyst. Thank you very much for joining us at this hour, and it's good to see you again. What does this mean for the United States? Let's start with the United States.
Sure. What this means is that 5 Americans that were being unjustly held in Iranian prisons on trumped-up charges are now free and heading back to their homes and heading back to their loved ones. Mm-hmm. So that's what it means initially here. That's the most important impact, is that these Americans, again, these are Iranian Americans unjustly held in Iran who are now free. So that's the number one impact, of course. The United States has agreed that funds held by South Korea, amounting to about $6 billion, can be released, but under very specific conditions, can be released from where they are being held now in Qatar. So that's the other element of the deal. And of course, it remains to be seen whether this has any wider impact on U.S.-Iranian relations. And of course, the all-important question of the Iran nuclear program. Right. For the moment, it does not look like there's much impact there. Please.
Edward, now talking about the relationship, U.S. does not have any diplomatic relationship with Iran, but Qatar played a mediator role. What is the impact to Qatar having formalized this deal?
Yes, well, Qatar did play an important role and continues to play a significant role, but it's not the only country. Oman played a significant role. The Biden administration acknowledged that. It also thanked Switzerland. Switzerland, ever since the Iranian Revolution back in '79 and the taking of U.S. hostages from the U.S. Embassy, Switzerland has represented U.S. interests in Tehran. And the U.S. also thanked Switzerland. So each of these countries has played a significant role. For Qatar, this is continuing the role that Qatar has played in affecting U.S. relationship with entities that the U.S. has very great difficulty speaking to. For example, the Taliban from Afghanistan. Qatar played a very significant, continues to play significant role there in both in fostering those talks that led ultimately to the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and also here in this issue of Iran. This will continue because these funds are being held in Iran. These funds that were $6 billion that was in South Korea because it was payments meant to go from South Korea to Iran for oil that it had purchased. Right. So these funds are now in Qatar. They will go to Iran, but only on specified conditions, only for uses, humanitarian uses. So Qatar continues to play a significant role. That could be a sensitive role in deciding whether funds are to be dispersed or not to be dispersed. Please.
Edward, when we're talking about prisoner swaps, it is done worldwide. So many countries are involved in these prisoner exchanges. One specific country that we have to mention here is Russia. What can Russia learn from this Iran-United States prisoner exchange?
What you ask an excellent question here. This is really the question. This is always the dilemma that a country faces. This is the dilemma that a leader like President Biden faces. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, they want Americans to come home, of course. They want these unjustly held Iranian Americans that are now free, they want them to come home, of course. At the same time, you don't want to create the conditions for future hostage taking, for future Iranian Americans to be held. And of course, this is, as your question suggests, this is, of course, what Russia knows and can glean from this. But Russia doesn't need to look at this. There was already the deal that the United States did with Russia to release a Russian who was convicted fairly and justly under arms control laws here in the United States for Brittany Griner, the basketball player who was being held again on these fake, phony charges. Right. So this is the dilemma. There are still Americans being held. There's a journalist being held in Russia. So this is what Russia can learn. Russia can learn that the U.S. was very careful about the terms here. And it was not just the U.S., the Biden administration saying, okay, South Korea, give all those $6 billion back to Iran. No, the money is being held in Qatar and will only be released for humanitarian purposes under very strict controls. So that's something else that hopefully Vladimir Putin sees, that the U.S. is being careful, judicious about the terms that it bargains for to gain the release, so not to simply get into a situation where you encourage future hostage taking. Please.
Foreign policy analyst Edward P. Joseph, as always, thank you very much for all your insights and for talking to WION World is One today. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.